Lock of the Night listeners, thanks for checking out the episode. As always, it's greatly appreciated. Just wanted to give you guys a quick heads up about my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/MMALOTN. Got a bunch of exclusive content up there, special locked-in episodes, specific prelim breakdowns, Hail Mary Patreon parlay, all my official bets, even when I'm charging the public, and then a Friday video or a day before event video that I drop just to discuss all of the type of line movements and any other spots that have caught my eye throughout fight week, as I normally record my Lock-Cast episode on Mondays. There's a lot of shit that happens throughout fight week, as we all know. So yeah, check it out, support your boy. Let's try to make this dream a reality. Now enjoy the episode. Welcome to another episode of the MMA Lock-Cast. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOTN. Yes, I'm not at Rob's place. It's weird as fuck, isn't it, to see this type of setup? I know, it's kind of weird. My boy Rob had a little bit of the cold, a little sick. He didn't want to pass it on to me or anything like that. And with all this new Patreon stuff that I'm doing and all the new content that I'm putting out, I can't really afford to miss a day in terms of releasing my content the days that I've stated that I will be releasing them. So we used to have a little bit of that leeway of recording on Tuesdays instead of Mondays in case something was wrong on the Monday. But I had to make the decision here and actually record it at my place this time around. So, Locked In is actually going to be a day late, unfortunately, just due to a lot of shit going on at the day job, and I just don't have enough time once I get home to put that episode together. But I'm in the midst of it, and I will get it out on Wednesday as soon as possible. But the Lock-Cast needs to come out on Tuesdays. I need to, sacrifice a little bit of sleep to make sure I get this episode out for you guys. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So UFC Moscow, this is the event that we're going to be going over for this weekend. Big main event. It's a 3-rounder due to the fact that Alexander Volkov was actually supposed to fight Junior Dos Santos. Junior Dos Santos gets some staph infection or something like that. In steps Greg Hardy, but for some reason they're not putting it as the main event. So they bring that down to co-main event and bump up the co-main event, which was Zabit Magomedsharipov versus Calvin Kattar. Since obviously they've been training for 3 rounds, they didn't want to move it up to 5 rounds, so they're fighting 3 rounds, which unfortunately for Calvin Kattar is a little bit more of an advantage for Zabit, but I'll get into that once we get to that actual fight. Obviously no casuals. As you guys can see, I'm alone in this room. It's just me. So I'm going to be doing a quick recap of UFC 244, and then we'll get into actually UFC Moscow and break down that card for you guys. So UFC 244, a loss, unfortunately. It was unfortunate coming off that Bellator 232 win that I had the week before. But let's go over this real quick. We'll start off with the lock of the night play, -5 units on Gregor Gillespie. Who the fuck thought that Kevin Lee was going to have a highlight reel type of knockout over Gregor? I thought if Kevin Lee was going to get a victory, it was going to be some sort of him overpowering Gregor in the clinch of some sort and eventually getting it down and pulling off some sort of submission, or catching him with like a Hail Mary type of shot. I can't really say that leg kick was a Hail Mary because that was very well set up. A right hand followed by the left high kick. Beautiful, picture perfect, right on the dot. Or right on the button, I should say, puts Gregor's lights out. First time he's ever lost, first time he's ever been finished. It was insane. Such a shock to me. Earlier today, I even released something saying that I haven't been that speechless after a knockout, especially on something that I had a lock of the night play on since Brian Ortega absolutely ended Frankie Edgar. So this one kind of hurt just because of my confidence level in it. And, I am confident in all the lock of the night plays I make, but obviously, there are certain levels to how confident I am in some and how confident I am in others. And like I would put Gregor Gillespie up there with Daniel Cormier when he got knocked out by Stipe Miocic earlier this year. That was another one where I was kind of speechless. And then the Brian Ortega Frankie Edgar one. I felt that one coming for a bit. I had to let that one out. I apologize. All right. Yeah. Gregor Gillespie losing to Kevin Lee, DC losing to Stipe in the fashion that he did. and then Frankie Edgar losing to Brian Ortega. I'd say the Edgar and Gillespie one just hurt the most due to the fact that they were just these crazy shots that came out of nowhere. Whereas with DC, Stipe start to change up his game plan a little bit, and within a minute he was able to implement it and finish DC. So that one really hurt, but we got to get back on the horse and keep it going. All right, let's move on to the next play. I had 1.5 units on Stephen Thompson at minus 125. Kind of wish I went a little bit deeper, but the issues of his chin and possibly that being one of his flaws really kept me away, considering how hard Vicente Luque actually punches. But if you guys were on the Patreon page, you guys saw in my breakdown that Luque only really likes to trade in the pocket and does his best work when fighters stay in the pocket with him. And there were a couple touch and go moments with Stephen Thompson where he actually decided to stay in the pocket and stay against the cage and throw a couple shots with Vicente Luque, but he was never in trouble. Stephen Thompson dropped him a couple times. It was a great performance on Wonderboy's side, and I kind of wish I went a little bit deeper on it, but I'm happy to get the plus 1.2 unit profit on that. Moving on to Kelvin Gastelum and Darren Till, I had 1.75 units on Kelvin Gastelum to win inside the distance at plus 120. And this kind of went like the Locked In episode kind of said. I thought that Kelvin Gastelum was going to win, and I thought he was going to be able to get it done in the first round, but if this somehow ended up going 15 full minutes, it was probably going to be a Darren Till decision, with him remaining super disciplined, not leaving those openings for Kelvin Gastelum to come in and hit him, and that's kind of what he did. There were still some issues where Darren Till left his chin a little bit vulnerable, but Kelvin Gastelum was just not able to close the distance enough to actually land on him. He was very close, and I'm sure he gave Darren Till a free shave every now and then, winging some of these shots and just missing him. But it's going to be very concerning for Darren Till moving forward when he's fighting guys just as big, if not bigger than him. And, that tall man and that defense of just pulling your head back or your body back, it's not going to work. And he's lucky Kelvin Gastelum wasn't able to close the distance, as some of these guys are going to be able to. So an L there. I was pretty confident in that play, but that's minus 1.75 units. Another L, 1 unit at plus 165 on Shane Burgos versus Makwan Amirkhani to go under 2.5 rounds. I was super confident in that one too, and we were close to hitting that shit. Burgos had Makwan really hurting close to the halfway point of the third round. Makwan toughs it out, and Burgos eventually gets the finish with less than a minute to go, which is kind of why I like playing the fight doesn't go to decision instead of unders and overs. But I got a little greedy this time, guys. I apologize. I think the fight doesn't go to decision was roughly around plus 150 or something, and I took the extra little bit of money on the plus 165 and unfortunately paid for it. So big one for Burgos there. Unfortunate loss for us. And my last play, last kind of official-ish play, was the Corey Anderson. So I had Corey Anderson to win straight. 0.5 units at plus 145, that cashes. And then obviously Corey Anderson to win inside the distance, 0.25 units at plus 493, had to take the shot. I'll be the first one to say, though, that that's not how I expected Corey Anderson to win. I was kind of expecting him to grind him out, wear out Johnny Walker and then eventually finish him in the late second round, early third round or something like that. But he just fucking went for it. He landed one beautiful shot on Johnny Walker. I think he thought he had Johnny Walker hurt, but it was more so the impact of the shot that kind of moved Johnny Walker, but didn't really stun or finish him. But then Corey Anderson just followed up with it with this crazy barrage, and then he eventually got the finish himself. Great win for him. He establishes himself back at the top of the light heavyweight division, and in my opinion, he probably he should get a title shot. But if you want to hear more about that, check out my last episode with Tony on the Combative Tours, and we definitely get a little bit deeper into that. But good underdog win there. Probably should have gone a little bit deeper as well. But again, I say that every time I fucking win a bet and don't put even more on it. So good one there. And then lastly, I have my Patreon Hail Mary Parlay. It's called a Hail Mary Parlay for a reason. We only put 0.25 units on it. And the odds on this one was plus 27.95. So if it cashed, it would have been a nice little hit. I think it would have cashed roughly about 6 units or so. But we had Corey Anderson to win, Wonderboy Thompson to win, Lyman Good to win, all who won. But then the people that blew it for us was Andrei Arlovsky, who just got absolutely dead out there. Showed a decent chin over the last 8 or 9 fights, and I kind of believed in it a little bit too much. Jairzinho comes up there and just absolutely mollywops him. And then obviously Gregor Gillespie was on that, and I've already talked about that, so I don't want to talk about that shit no more. All in all, minus 4.84 units. Shitty event. But we're back on the horse for UFC Moscow, which goes down this weekend. Very fun card in terms of talent sprinkled throughout. You know, the UFC debut of Abubakar Nurmagomedov against David Zawada. That's a fun fight. Rustam Khabilov coming back as well. Magomed Ankalaev versus Dalcha Lungiambula. Fun fight. Ramazan Emeev versus Anthony Rocco Martin. I'm going to keep calling the dude Tony Martin, though. UFC debut of Shamil Gamzatov. Big fight there. A barn burner, which should be between Zelim, Imadaev, and Daniel Roberts. That should be a great fight. I have a very strong lean there that I'll get into. But all in all, you know, Alexander Volkov versus Greg Hardy. Another great fight, at least in terms of seeing where Greg Hardy is at. You know, he showed some improvements last time around, going the full 15 minutes and showing off a little bit more than we've seen from him in the past. But this is a huge fucking step up. And is he worthy of it? Is he able to overcome this mountain that's Alexander Volkov? I'll let you guys know a little bit later in the episode. And then obviously in the main event, we got Zabit versus Calvin Kattar. Can't wait for that fight. Should be a striker's delight. Unfortunately, it's only 3 rounds. So hopefully it lives up to its hype and within the 15 minutes that it has. All right, just like I did for last week, I'm going to be giving quick picks for my prelim plays. I will go into one of the prelim fights, which is probably going to be Magomed Ankalaev versus Dalcha Lungiambula. But if you guys want to hear more about the prelims or even request that I go into a specific fight, you all got to hit up the patreon.com/MMALOTN. Last week I did Andrei Arlovsky versus Jairzinho Rosenstruik for the guys there. But I think I'm going to go into at least 2 or 3 this week. Rustam Khabilov versus Sergey Khandozhko. That will probably be one. Maybe the Nurmagomedov fight and probably Popov versus Grant. But if you guys sign up, you guys are more than welcome to request a different fight, and I'll be happy to break that shit down for you guys. But as of right now, I'm just going to be giving quick picks. Why I'm choosing these people, there's only one way to find out, and I just told you. So let's start off at the bottom of the card. Also, I'm going with the Tapology page, which is kind of sketchy when it comes to main card and prelims, especially a little like with some of these fights. So I'm going to be using Wikipedia's lineup, but I'll also be using Tapology as well. To help me get the order of these fights correctly. So, Jessica Rose Clark versus Patty Kianzad. I got Jessica Rose Clark. Alexander Yakovlev versus Roosevelt Roberts. I got Roberts. Abubakar Nurmagomedov versus David Zawada. I got Nurmagomedov. Grigory Popov versus Davy Grant. I got Popov. Rustam Khabilov versus Sergey Khandozhko. Got Rustam there. And then Ed Herman versus Khadis Ibragimov. If you guys have been following me for a while, you guys know I'm not a big fan of Ed Herman. I don't think he's the best fighter out there. Khadis isn't the greatest fighter out there either, but I'm still going to take him to win this fight. And that brings us to our prelim fight that I'm actually going to go into a little bit more and not going to give a quick pick for. So let's get into Magomed Ankalaev versus Dalcha Lungiambula. So Dalcha Lungiambula has one fight in the UFC so far where he beat Daquan Townsend. Before that, he was actually a champion over at EFC, heavyweight champion, even though this guy is not the biggest in terms of stats, like metrics. 34 years old, 5'10", and 76-inch reach. But the guy has quick hands and a lot of speed behind him as well. So he's able to close distances against these guys pretty quickly. Another good thing that I saw about him is the fact that he's actually able to get some cool trips, get some very decisive takedowns. Doesn't have the best top control per se, but is able to dish out a lot of damage from on top if he's able to get it there. So the fact that he's been a little bit undersized in most of his fights, he's been getting away with it with his speed and power. He only has 1 loss on his record. He's currently riding a 6-fight win streak. I like the guy. He's 34. slowly getting closer to the end of his peak, I would say. But I think he has a monumental task ahead of him with Magomed Ankalaev. Ankalaev is a beast. Outside of that Paul Craig gaff that he had in his UFC debut, he's been nothing but gold. That's his only loss on his record. In the Marcin Prachnio fight, he comes out and absolutely demolishes him. His hands are quick. Anytime that Prachnio tried closing the distance with some hooks or anything like that, Magomed was quick with his hands, able to do some work and land some damage on Marcin. And I think that's kind of what's going to happen in this fight with Dalcha as well. At any point that Dalcha decides to try to close the distance and be the quicker man here, I think that Magomed's going to stick him with the crisp jab and a two right behind it. And I think that he has decent enough movement as well to maybe get away from what Dalcha is going to be coming with in terms of grappling as well. I feel like Dalcha is going to have to try to get a hold of Magomed, try to get him down, and maybe work some of his top position. But again, I haven't seen the best top control from him, and I don't think he's going to be able to hold a guy like Magomed down either. So there's a reason that Magomed is currently like a minus 300-ish favorite. Let me confirm that number. Minus 300, yeah, you can get him at minus 278 on William Hill, but 5 times has a minus 300, and I think it's kind of correct. Dalcha is a little bit one-dimensional when it comes to the striking, but again, kind of like the Kelvin Gastelum, like I spoke about last week, he's quick with his punches and he's quick with closing the range. But I think the reach discrepancy here is going to be a little bit too much for him. Or at least the size discrepancy, because he actually has 1 inch on Magomed Ankalaev, but he's giving up roughly about 4 inches in height. So the leg reach definitely comes into play here. But I think that Magomed's going to have the crisper hands. He's going to be able to catch Dalcha when he comes on the inside, and I think he's going to make it a long night for Dalcha, but I think he eventually finds a finish probably in the 3rd round after Dalcha starts sucking wind a little bit more. And I'm not saying he has a worse cardio, but he has gone a full 25 before in his last his fight before the UFC against Andrew Van Zyl, sorry. Split decision victory there, but it was impressive that he was able to go the full 5 rounds against a guy that was kind of known for his cardio, but I just don't see him having fought anybody with the type of striking of a Magomed Ankalaev. So I'm taking Ankalaev here. I'm going to take him by 3rd round finish, and he actually may be a parlay piece for me this week. But I've still got to kind of settle on who I believe is going to be that last parlay piece. But I got Magomed Ankalaev to win here by 3rd round TKO. Tough match for Dalcha. I hope that he somehow cuts some of his muscle mass down and maybe goes to 185. He could probably do most of his damage down there. And we've seen a guy like Jared Cannonier go from heavyweight all the way down to middleweight and have a lot of success there. However, Jared Cannonier wasn't coming into the UFC sculpted like a fucking Greek god, and looks like he has absolutely no fat on him. But if he's able to make that drop, it's another 20 pounds, so it's kind of a lot. I just think he's just too undersized for 205. Obviously, too undersized for heavyweight, so there's no point in going up there. But he's skilled, he's quick, he's fast. But it's only going to get him so far, and unfortunately, it's not going to get him past Magomed Ankalaev. All right, let's move on to the main card. I hope this is in order. Tapology, don't fuck me over. That's all I got to say. Let's start off with the Anthony Rocco Martin versus Ramazan Emeev. I've been a big fan of Emeev since he came into the UFC. I have actually made him a lock of the night play in his UFC debut when he fought Sam Alvey. I thought that was kind of a no-brainer there. Alvey just being so one-dimensional and Emeev having a lot of accolades behind him. Sambo master, decent grappling. He's been wrestling since he's 6 years old. But he's been showing great hands as well. He rocked Stefan Sekulic a couple times. He had a lot of success with Alberto Mina as well. Mina just kept digging for heel hooks and knee bars and just wasn't able to pull it off. Ramazan Emeev was very privy to it. His hand speed is great. He does well with counters as well. He kind of waits for his opponents to throw and then he'll throw back. With Anthony Rocco Martin, this is an intriguing matchup. I think this is going to be a little bit of a closer of a fight. So I'm going to be, personally, I'll probably be passing. It's minus 155 Emeev, plus 135 for Anthony Rocco Martin. It's hard to break down this fight. in a way, it seems like it could be a close fight. And when you're talking about close fights in Russia, and you're going up against a Russian, you got to be very careful there. Um, the value, in my opinion, is in the underdog here with Anthony Rocco Martin. He's coming off that loss to Damian Maia, majority decision loss. There was an argument that he won that last round against Damian Maia with a 10-8. Probably could have made it a draw. Um, and then in the Sergio Moraes fight and the Jake Matthews fight, two things that were very, clear to me is that he really worked on his kicking game. He started really targeting the legs on these guys now, especially the calf. He did a lot of work on Sergio Moraes with the calf kick. He did the same thing to Damian Maia. Did a lot of leg work on Jake Matthews. And there's one kind of combo that he throws that I'm really liking was when he throws a naked head kick, which is kind of weird because that's probably what you want to hide behind other punches. But one thing that he does, he kind of throws it, and if he lands, it's great. He might rock his opponent or at least cause a little bit of damage. But more often than not, people are looking to counter that. So I saw him implement it a lot in the Jake Matthews fight, and it kind of paid dividends for him. He would throw the head kick, and Jake Matthews was kind of reactively counter that, and then that would allow Anthony Martin to counter him as well. So he's kind of throwing that head kick as something to pull a counter out of his opponent so that he can counter their counter. I think it's a great tactic. And then in the Jake Matthews fight, he threw that leg, threw the kick to the leg. It brought out the punch of Jake Matthews, and he countered him with a beautiful shot. Eventually locked up the anaconda choke and put his ass to sleep. Beautiful work by Anthony Rocco Martin there, but I think it's going to be tough for him against a guy like Ramazan Emeev, who's kind of cautious in his own right as well. So one of them is going to have to lull each other into lull the other guy into throwing something and try to capitalize on it. But with the hand speed of Emeev, the potential for this fight to be as close as it is, I gotta lean Anthony Martin or Tony Martin here, but I'm probably going to pass on it. I just don't have the balls to bet against a Russian in a fight that I think is going to be close. There's a couple other spots where I'm looking at the away team winning their fight, and I may put some money on it, but it all comes down to is the price worth it first and foremost, and will it be as close as I think that this fight will be? So, in my opinion, I think this fight's going to be a little bit too close. I'm going to go with Rocco Martin just for value's sake, and I think that he has a little bit more to offer than Ramazan Emeev. I think that Martin needs to be cautious of getting into the clincher because I think Emeev will have the advantage there. But I think that Rocco Martin is pretty disciplined. The Damian Maia fight, Damian Maia gets everybody. Like it's kind of hard unless you have insane wrestling like Kamaru Usman or Colby Covington. You're probably not getting this guy down. So, yeah, I got Tony Martin here to win by decision, but I think it's just going to be super close. So personally, I'm going to pass on it. If you guys want to bet on it, I think the value is on Anthony Rocco Martin. So take the shot there if you guys feel the need to really bet this fight. Next up, we got Shamil Gamzatov versus Klidson Abreu. Let's start off with Klidson Abreu. He's coming off a victory over Sam Alvey in a fight where he kind of showed almost everything. Sam Alvey is always hard to take down, and then when he is on the ground, it's hard to kind of keep him down. So Klidson Abreu definitely showed that, but he also showed that he's a little bit more of a little bit more. We got Alfred over there making a little bit of noise. I'm not sure if you guys heard him. It's been a while since you guys seen him anyway, so I'll probably show him a little bit later. It's okay, Alfred. It's okay. All right. Yeah, with Klidson Abreu, he showed a little bit more of an all-around MMA game. Great Thai, has a lot of good jiu-jitsu as well. He submitted Victor Nemkov back at M1. Was it M1? Yeah, M1. RCC 3. And then had a straight armbar in his M1 fight after that, and then he made his UFC debut against Magomed Ankalaev. Very tough task for somebody who making their debut, and then comes back and wins against Sam Alvey. So Shamil is kind of in the spot that Klidson was against Magomed, making his UFC debut. And yeah, it's in his hometown and all, but you got to be cautious about a guy possibly succumbing to UFC jitters. With the way that, with what I've seen from both of these guys, I think it's going to be a close fight as well. Shamil has shown the fact that he's not the hardest to take down. Rodney Wallace has had a lot of success against him. Eddie Gordon had some success against him too. And it was a lot of fights where it seemed a little close, and then Shamil was able to put together a little bit of an onslaught and steal rounds from these guys. With Klidson Abreu, I think it's going to be a little bit harder for him. I think that Klidson has the ability to take Shamil down. Will he be able to submit him? I'm not 100% sure. Will he be able to control him? Not 100% sure either, because Gamzatov actually showed a good ability to get back to his feet as well. So I'm a little bit torn on this fight. I don't feel comfortable betting Gamzatov. What's he at now? Minus 210 area. I think the value's on Klidson here too. I'm hoping that the UFC jitters don't get to Shamil Gamzatov here, because I think that he is a promising prospect. Undefeated, I believe. Yeah, 13-0. Had a little bit of a stint in the PFL and then decided to join the UFC. It's been a while since he's fought too. He hasn't fought since August of last year against Rex Harris. I like Klidson here, man. The only thing kind of scaring me off is the fact that this fight's in Russia as well. I could see it being as close as like a Tony Martin and Ramazan Emeev fight. So that's kind of what's scaring me off here. But I'm not too mad at the plus 175 on Klidson. I'm probably going to take Klidson now that I'm thinking about it. I just don't like the fact that Shamil is a little bit. He could do better with his pacing. He doesn't have the most output. And I think that Klidson could take advantage of that if Shamil wants to go that route. And I think if Klidson goes in there and tries to mix it up with some takedowns and implement his jiu-jitsu, he might have some success in terms of, scoring rounds. But he's going to have to be very persistent with it. If he just does it in little spurts and Shamil has his moments as well, the Russian judge, or not even the Russian judges, but just judges in general, are probably going to sway a little bit more towards Shamil. Obviously, with the crowd reacting a little bit more to what Shamil does than what Klidson does, which is unfortunate. They shouldn't have outside factors like that. But it is what it is. Values on Klidson here, in my opinion. I'm not huge on Shamil. He could prove me wrong here. A couple of that in with the fact that it's his UFC debut, and I haven't really been having the most success with guys making their UFC debuts. I'm going to go with Klidson. I think Klidson takes this by decision, just with a little bit more output, a little bit more success with mixing the fight up. But he's going to have to wear on Shamil a little bit to make it a little bit easier for him too. So pass for me in general. I just don't feel comfortable taking Abreu here, but I do think he's going to win, and I'm going to take I'm just going to take him to win by decision. Next up, now let's talk about a fight where I actually am probably going to make a bet. Zelim Imadaev versus Danny Roberts. If you guys remember last time around, I faded Danny Roberts, and for some goddamn reason, Michel Pereira was up to like a plus 240 underdog against him, and I had to take the shot. Danny Roberts, according to Tapology, closed out as a minus 235 favorite against Michel Pereira, but I had to take the shot there. It was a no-brainer. Considering the state of Danny Roberts' chin, you got to take him. And this is another aspect where he's fighting a guy that's a little bit unorthodox with his striking, loves to throw spinning shit, throws a lot of heat, likes to push the pressure, likes to be in guys' faces. And I think all of those things are, just a bad matchup for Danny Roberts. I'm not going to completely shit on Danny Roberts here. I think he has good striking. He has good technique. I believe he's still down at Hard Knocks 365 as well with Henry Hooft. But I love Zelim here. I love fading guys with, chin issues. He got rocked multiple times in that Claudio Silva fight and then stupidly gave up an armbar. Very controversial as well, whether he tapped or not. And then Michel Pereira just putting him out pretty much in round 2. I could see Zelim kind of having the same success that Michel Pereira had, maybe even a little bit quicker. Zelim's fight against Max Griffin, that was an interesting one because that first round was clearly Max Griffin. And then unfortunately Zelim had that point taken away for grabbing the fence. I like the assertiveness of the referee in that fight, and it should be like that. Guys shouldn't have to be warned. Guys should already fucking know, do not grab the cage. So good on that ref for taking the point away from Zelim. But honestly, I thought that fight was a draw. I thought that Max Griffin won that first round, and obviously he wanted 10-8 because Zelim got that point taken away. But the next two rounds, I think Zelim dished out enough offense to clearly win both of those rounds and then make it a draw. Even in the third round, he was coming forward, and Max Griffin was able to lean on him and clinch him up a little bit near the ending of that third round. But Zelim was going for it, and I don't think he's going to need more than one round this time around to put out a guy like Danny Roberts. He's going to catch him on the chin, and Roberts' chin is just not there. The guy cannot take a shot. So the fact that you're able to give me close to minus 110 for Zelim inside the distance, I am hammering that shit. What is he now? Imadaev inside the distance, still minus 110. I'm still going to wait it out because I think there might be some people that are going to play Danny Roberts. The line is slowly coming down now too for Zelim. He was like minus 220. She's minus 210 now on Pinnacle. Let's see on 5 dimes if it was as drastic. Minus 180 down to minus 225 and then up to minus 210. I think there's going to be a little bit of Danny Roberts money coming in, but I need the limits to go up a little bit as well on Sportbet for me. And then I'm going to make the play on Zelim, probably inside the distance, and it'll probably be a lock of the night play. I don't feel as comfortable as I do with any other bet than that. With that said, with it being around the minus 110 range, I don't see the need to go the full 5 units. So I'll probably go 3.5 units on Zelim, maybe 4 units tops. But I think there's plenty of value in that line alone that you don't need to risk 5 units and, possibly Danny Roberts landing some crazy shot and putting Zelim out as well. So I love the value on Zelim inside the distance. Definitely going to be a lock of the night play. And unfortunately going to knock out Danny Roberts and cause a little bit more CTE in his life. But I'm taking Zelim. First round finish. Yeah, I don't know what to say more than that. He just, the unorthodox nature of his strikes is going to cause a little bit of confusion for Danny Roberts, just as it did in the Michel Pereira fight. But I think that Zelim is going to be a little bit more efficient with it and definitely get that first round finish. So also the last thing I want to point out, Max Griffin had a lot of success with grinding and clinching with Zelim Imadaev. I just don't think that Danny Roberts is going to have that type of success or for that long. So, he may try to grow for it. I think that Zelim is going to be a little strong for him. He's going to be able to get out of bad positions and then unleash hell and then put Danny Roberts out. So I'm taking Zelim Imadaev by first round finish and making that a lock of the night play. All right. Let's get into the next fight. Alexander Volkov versus Greg Hardy. So these next two fights, I'm out here dog hunting. So Alexander Volkov is taking a little bit of a time off. He was actually scheduled to fight, I believe, Alistair Overeem. Yeah, Alistair Overeem back in April. He had to pull out due to health issues. I'm not 100% sure exactly what those issues were. But due to that pullout, he hasn't fought since October of last year, which was Khabib against McGregor at UFC 229. That was a fight against Derek Blackbeast Lewis where I actually had Volkov as a lock of the night play. And then with 11 seconds left, Derek Lewis puts his lights out. Good night. But Volkov went out there, played a great game plan, picked apart Derek Lewis from the outside, did a lot of damage, didn't have much to worry about other than evading those big shots from Derek Lewis. And I just don't know what went through his brain when that last exchange took place and Derek Lewis was able to capitalize on it. If anything in Derek Lewis fights that you should take is the fact that this guy likes to put it on you at the end of the round. He even showed it this past weekend against Blagoy-Ivanov. He goes ham in those last 30 to 40 seconds of every round just to try to steal it or try to get a knockout of some sort. And I guess Alexander Volkov just didn't get that fucking memo. But he showed a great fight up until that point, and now he comes in here against Greg Hardy, fighting a guy that kind of has the same type of knockout ability as a Derek Lewis, but try to show a little bit more tools in his shed in his last fight against Ben Sassoli. So moving over to Greg Hardy, all we've seen from this guy is just raw power and just absolute chaos every time he fights in there. But in his last fight against Ben Sassoli, in a fight that I took the under 1.5, this guy fucking goes out there and tries to be a GSP or some fucking, just a guy that looks for points. It was crazy. Set aside Inhaler Gate and all that stuff. He looked fucking good. He was going out there tossing leg kicks out there, something that our American top team has worked on a lot with their guys, especially the calf kick. But Greg Hardy showed that he could go the full 15 minutes, inhaler or not. I think he still would have been able to go the full 15. It's good to get that ring time in there rather than just go in there, mollywop these guys, and then get out and have no experience. So I understand where he's coming from when he wanted to go the full 15 against Ben Sassoli, but this is probably not the fight that you want to go the full 15 against a guy like Alexander Volkov, who technically pretty much everywhere has Greg Hardy beat except punching power and possibly explosiveness. So with that said, I'm a little I'm a little put off by the fact that the line is so wide. You can currently get Greg Hardy roughly around the plus 230-ish range. I think it should be a little bit closer to maybe minus 230, plus 180-ish. But I think people are privy to the fact that Greg Hardy could possibly land that one-shot KO on Volkov, especially on a guy that just got put out in his last fight. It's good that he's taken over a year off and kind of was forced to take over the full year off, after pulling out from that Overeem fight and back in April. But I like the chances of Greg Hardy possibly finding Volkov's chin within 15 minutes. I see no reason as to why you should bet Alexander Volkov here at those super juicy odds when there is always that chance that Greg Hardy's going to be able to close the distance and land on him. It's a no-brainer. Hardy wins inside the distance is plus 275. I love that fucking line. I may make at least a 0.5 unit stab on that because I don't see Greg Hardy trying to go in there and try to GSP his way to a victory again or, decision his way to a victory. I just don't see it happening. And he should know that too, just as his coaches should know. So if he goes out there, implements his leg kicks, which he was working on as well, but not too much to the point where, Volkov could possibly, use it against him, maybe take Greg Hardy down. I'm not sure if he's going to have a lot of success holding Greg Hardy down just because the guy's so fucking massive, powerful, and explosive. I think that Volkov will have a lot of issues trying to hold him down. I think Volkov's best shot is maybe clinching Hardy against the cage, working his legs, some knees to the thigh, maybe some leg kicks of his own. But he's got to be careful of the power from Greg Hardy, and I think that Hardy kind of wants to go in there, get his job done, and get out. So don't get me wrong, skill-wise and experience and all that, Alexander has Greg Hardy absolutely beat. But we're talking about heavyweights here and guys with heavy punching power. I think Greg Hardy has the power, explosiveness, and ability to close the distance here because he is actually going to be this shorter and smaller guy, but very slightly to Volkov. But his NFL fucking explosiveness is going to come out here, and I think he's going to close the distance against Volkov, find the chin, and put him out. Volkov's got to play it very, very disciplined and very, very safe. Otherwise, he's in for he's going to be knocked out. Plain and simple. I don't know how to sugarcoat it there, but I'm gonna go with Greg Hardy, man. I can't believe I'm fucking saying it against a guy that is like a top 7-ish heavyweight in Alexander Volkov, but I think he gets the victory here. He puts Volkov out, and I think plus 275 is definitely worth a shot, so I might be making at least a 0.5 unit stab on that. So I'm going to take Hardy by KO first round, and I think you guys should take advantage of the fact that his inside the distance, or even if you want to play him straight, if you can only get him straight, plus 236, not a bad line, or plus 235. But inside the distance is kind of where it's at for me, and I'm going to be taking him at plus 275, 0.5 units. Greg Hardy, first round finish. Can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth, but they are. All right, let's move on to the main event here. Zabit Magomedsharipov versus Calvin Kattar. Very excited for this fight. Stylistically, these guys are matched up very well. Two mainly strikers, even though Zabit has a little bit of more a grappling background that he can kind of lean on. But with Calvin Kattar, you're talking about a guy that's super disciplined on the feet. Sometimes he moves a little bit too heavy on his lead foot, and people are able to kind of chop him down. Renato Moicano had a lot of success there. Ricardo Lamas kind of worked it a little bit until he got put the fuck out. And Zabit does a good job with working the leg kicks. So, if Zabit can stay on that, and he is going to be kind of forced to move backwards this whole fight. I think that Calvin's going to be the one bringing the fight to him, going to try to work his hands. I think he will have success with the hands. My only issue is with Zabit, like he is very precise when it comes to moving backwards and still landing good shots. So I think that he might be able to find some openings on Calvin here. And I wouldn't even be surprised to see Zabit kind of lean on his wrestling. The one advantage, like I said at the top of the show, that Zabit's going to have here is the fact that it's a 3-round fight. I think if it goes, if it's a full 5-round fight, that would open up more options for Calvin Kattar to win this fight in the later rounds. As we've seen Zabit kind of gas in the third rounds of his fight against Jeremy Stephens, even the Kyle Bochniak fight, he was kind of slowing down there. But I like Calvin Kattar's chances at the heavy dog odds that he's currently at. So this is going to be one of those weird ones where I'm actually going to pick Zabit to win, but I might make a small bet on. Excuse me. I'm going to pick Zabit to win, but I think I'm going to make a small bet on Calvin Kattar here. Plus 250. What is it? Plus 250 for a guy with the skill set of Calvin Kattar is definitely worth a shot, especially against a guy in Zabit who might get a little wild sometimes with some of his strikes. And if there's a guy to take advantage of that and try to, catch Zabit slipping, it's a guy like Calvin Kattar who has such crisp striking. His punches are just so clean. What he put Ricardo Lamas out with was just insane. He works the body very well. He's going to have to check some leg kicks here because I think that might be one of Zabit's main game plans as well is really beat up the front leg of Calvin Kattar so he's not able to generate as much power when he's throwing his strikes. But I like Calvin Kattar at dog money, the crazy dog money that he's currently at. But I still think that Zabit outpoints him and wins a decision here. And this might be a close fight, like I've kind of been pointing at the Ramazan Emeev fight and the against Tony Martin. But Tony Martin's not a plus 250 underdog here. So I'm willing to take a shot on a plus 250 dog here. Very small, probably like a 0.5 to 0.75 unit bet. Nothing too crazy, but I think it's worth a shot. Again, considering the skill sets of these guys. Calvin could easily catch Zabit on some, if Zabit slacks a little bit or throws a little bit too much or overextends on one of his shots. We don't see that often from Zabit, and he's going to have to really, really make sure that he watches himself in that 5th round too. Otherwise, Calvin Kattar could definitely, capitalize on his lack of a gas tank and move forward, push forward, and land big shots and work the body as well. So Zabit, this is kind of a coming out party for him, at least to the masses, and having that big fight on, his main. He's the main event. He's the fucking main event. The card is, with an asterisk, it's kind of built around him. There's a reason they moved into the main event and didn't, leave Alexander Volkov there. You could have easily left Volkov versus Hardy in the main event. There might have been a lot of politics behind it too, but they moved Zabit up there. They know this is going to be an entertaining fight, and Calvin Kattar is a very, very dangerous opponent. So, main thing for Zabit, work with the leg kicks. If he's able to work the leg kicks, he's going to slow down Calvin Kattar and he'll be a little bit safer in the 3rd round. If you're going to be backing up, make sure you're throwing enough to still get the judge's decision as he has in the Jeremy Stephens fight and the Kyle Bochniak fight. But I think it's going to be a little bit harder when you have a guy as disciplined and as crisp as Calvin Kattar, which is why I'm comfortable with taking a small dog shot on Calvin Kattar here. So I am going to pick Zabit Magomedsharipov to win, but I will be making a small bet on Calvin Kattar just in the off chance that, he lands a perfect shot on him, whether it be in the 1st round and a half or in that 3rd round when Zabit starts to slow down a bit. But I like his chances, man. There's no brains about it. I thought this was going to be a much closely lined fight, like maybe minus 160, minus 175 for Zabit. But a lot of people either love Zabit or the bookmakers are just, got Zabit's balls in their mouth. I don't fucking know. But I like Calvin Kattar to win. But I am going to pick Zabit. Zabit will be my pick, but Calvin Kattar is more than likely going to be a bet. So don't get those two things twisted. I don't mind betting against the guy that I'm picking to win. The value needs to be there. The reasoning needs to be there. And the skill set needs to be there. And Calvin Kattar checks off all 3 of those boxes for me. Plain and simple. All right. That was the MMA Lock-Cast. Thanks for joining me as always. Next week, we're going to be going over UFC Brazil, somewhere in Brazil. I think it's headlined by Jan Blachowicz and Jacare Souza. Jacare going up to 205. So that should be an interesting spin on things. And Jan tries to push back another guy moving up to from middleweight. You know, last time around he beat Luke Rockhold, and now he's going to try to do the same thing against Jacare Souza on Jacare's home turf. Yeah, it's been a busy week. I got locked in with Alexander Volkov and Greg Hardy coming out on Wednesday, so you should guys check that out. I'll get into a little bit why I think that Greg Hardy could actually win this fight. Combatosaurus is out. That dropped on Monday, aka today. And Deciding Splits came out on Sunday as well, where we dissected Derek Lewis versus Blagoevnov. We got a good reception on that. A lot of people are enjoying it. I can't wait to keep doing it with Tony. We have a lot of fun doing that, and it really helps us too in terms of really breaking down fights and how scoring should actually go. So that's fun. And then lastly, the Patreon. You know what I mean? I'm trying to upgrade this studio that I got going on and continue to do this a little bit more full time and put out more videos for you guys too. Big shout out to Rockstar Z for blowing your boy up a little bit on Twitter. So I appreciate that. But I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Patreon.com/MMALOTN, on Twitter at MMALOTN. The website is www.mmalotn.ca. Subscribe, like, hit me in the comments, rag on me if you want, love me if you want. It's all good. Thanks for checking out the episode. I'll see you guys next week. Peace.